Do you just hate cold weather? With winter starting to settle in, I bet year-round sunshine and beautiful beaches sounds pretty good. Am I right? But stop Googling flights to Hawaii and put your Florida Beach Pinterest board on private before you embarrass yourself, cause I have 2 words for you. San Diego. Since its founding on July 16th, 1769, San Diego, California has become a very desirable vacation spot because while its Spanish Empire days are far behind, its weather is still practically perfect with nearly 270 sunny days a year, which explains why it's become much more than just a tourist destination. At least for the 1.45 million residents who live within the city limits and 3.38 million people who populate the metro area. It's right here on a map, and while it's often overshadowed by its northern neighbors, LA and San Francisco, San Diego's cheaper, has less traffic, and is much safer. It's not hard to see why we put it as our best big city to live in for 2020. From having arguably the best zoo in the world and tons of fun museums, to offering an excellent assortment of breweries with a bustling nightlife scene in the Gaslamp Quarter, San Diego has something for everyone, especially surfers. But yogis, hikers, bikers, horse riders, and even hot air ballooners can also find plenty to do. And despite all of the activities, San Diego's actually one of the cleanest major US cities. But it's not all sunshine and pleasant breezes. Well, actually it kind of is. But it isn't perfect. So before you pack up your life and move to America's finest city, these are my top 10 reasons not to move to San Diego. Number 10. Tourists. San Diego is the 9th most visited city in the United States with over 35 million annual visitors. And it shows. Now to be fair, a lot of this may be due to Los Angeles and its near 19 million greater metro population being just a 2-hour drive away, but there's still many people from all over the world who dream about visiting San Diego for its sunny beaches and tourist attractions like the zoo, Gaslamp Quarter, SeaWorld, Balboa Park, and more. And while this may help out the local economy, it also means a bunch of entitled visitors who tend to be jerks and think that the world revolves around them since they are on vacation. Now, despite what the population might suggest, San Diego doesn't feel like a big city by any stretch of the imagination. And it isn't meant to be one. So when summer rolls around and the tourists actually outnumber the locals, everything becomes overcrowded with lines out the door. Not to mention, it's basically impossible to find parking. Just about everything's more expensive as well, since the city knows the tourists are willing to spend more money. I mean, heck, a day at the zoo costs $60 per person. Oh, and don't even bother trying to go anywhere during 4th of July weekend. Well, unless your idea of celebration is sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic while frantically dodging pedestrians and circling the same block 200 times until you end up paying some entrepreneurial resident $100 to park in their driveway. Number 9. Awful drivers. Speaking of those tourists, they also suck at driving.
Yeah, well, I'm on vacation, gosh darn it! So if you don't get out of my way as I tailgate and swerve recklessly just to stop at a red light 1 car ahead of you in this bumper-to-bumper traffic, which probably wouldn't even exist if none of us visited your city in the first place, I'm gonna run you over!
But what'd you expect? After all, the city revolves around the tourists and their needs. How dare you be on the road at the same time they're driving to see the bonobos at the zoo? Not that you really had any other option, since the public transportation also sucks, and you can't exactly walk places considering how spread out everything is. Now, the city is working to improve the infrastructure, but that means construction, and construction means even more traffic. Add 2 closed lanes on top of all the tourists who think they own the road even though they have no idea where they're going, and all the locals who think they own the road because, well, taxes, and you have a mess. GasBuddy actually ranked San Diego as having the most aggressive drivers in the nation for 2019. Number 8. Pollution. With all that traffic, I'm sure you can guess there's a lot of cars in San Diego, which means there's so much pollution that even the ocean breeze can't blow it all away. Well, to be fair, maybe it actually could if it weren't also sandwiched between Los Angeles and Tijuana, both of which have some of the worst pollution levels on Earth. The American Lung Association actually ranked the San Diego metropolitan area as having the 6th worst ozone pollution in the US. So So while you might think of your beautiful sunny vacation looking like this, don't forget to pack your inhaler because the air quality looks more like this. But hey, at least it's not as bad as LA, which has the worst ozone pollution in the country. Number 7, there's no seasons. Okay, yes, I know that native Southern Californians call that time from December to March when temperatures dip into the low 60s winter, but that's just laughable for anyone who's ever experienced a real winter. And outside of those months, temperatures in San Diego are almost always in the 70s to mid 80s. Now, this might sound nice at first, but oddly enough, for a lot of people, the same perfect weather every day gets boring. There's no time to enjoy the changing leaves of autumn and the way they crunch beneath your boots, and you'll never get to stay home from school or work on a snow day to build snowmen with your family before relaxing with some hot cocoa. No siree. The sun is out pretty much every day, which means you feel like you have to go out too. Yes, it's a real thing, folks, and it's called sunshine guilt. When you really just want to have a cozy, chill day to lay in bed and watch Netflix, but you feel bad since the sun is shining. Speaking of which, don't forget to use a lot of sunscreen multiple times a day. Your skin will thank me later. Number 6, natural disasters. What San Diego lacks in weather diversity, it makes up for in natural disasters. Is the summer not hot enough for you? Well, have no fear, because fire season's here to heat things up. Or maybe do fear, because every year there are wildfires that destroy homes and ravage the natural landscape. I mean, heck, even on Christmas Eve just a week ago, there was a fire that burned over 4,000 acres. These wildfires also cause landslides when they decimate the natural vegetation that holds the earth in place. And speaking of the earth, it also tends to shake around here. While other parts of California may be better known for their earthquakes, San Diego still has its fair share. Between all the local fault lines, there's actually an 18% chance that the city will experience a magnitude 6.7 earthquake within the next 30 years. Number 5. It's culturally bland. If you're looking for culture, I'd keep heading north to either LA or San Francisco, because San Diego doesn't offer the most vivacious cultural scene. Sure, North Park is nothing like South Bay, and many of the neighborhoods feel like completely different towns, but that's more just areas being spread out and lacking any cohesion than actually having a unique vibe. On the other hand, I guess you could say that the huge military presence here makes sense, because a lot of the culture feels very uniform among all the suburban beach towns. Now, there is a decent art scene and a sizable alternative music scene, but most of the fun things to do here are just catered to tourism, so it lacks any real substance. Heck, even the food isn't that great. You'd expect more from the Mexican cuisine considering it's so close to the border, but LA actually has way better Mexican food. Now, all of this isn't necessarily a negative, as a lot of people do love the simple family-oriented style of life. But San Diego definitely feels more like a collection of small towns than a true big city. Number 4, douchebags. You know what's easy to find in California? Douchebags. Now, in the other California cities, the people tend to at least try to hide their douchebaggery and will instead pretend to be your best friend but then drop you and never talk to you again when something better comes along or you don't benefit them anymore. In San Diego, however, the people are just straight up jerks. Sure, the tourists act entitled, but so do most of the residents under the age of 35. The San Diego that once attracted peaceful beach bums is now known for the douchey bros that think they run the city. No, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everyone in San Diego stinks. I actually have friends there who are some of the kindest people I know. But even they would tell you that the culture here is conducive to douchebaggery. If you're from San Diego, you probably know that this is all true, but you'll also probably never admit it since San Diegans are super prideful and get real defensive anytime you try to criticize their city. I mean, just look at the comment section on this video. Number 3. It's expensive. Okay, so sure, San Diego is cheaper than LA or the Bay Area, but that's not exactly saying much. I mean, it still is in California, which means the median home value is a whopping $720,000, and that number's expected to go up by 12% over the next year due to the current housing shortage, which is only getting worse as the city continues to prioritize high-income housing. Unfortunately, rent isn't much better either at $2,400 a month on average. average, and between $3,200 to $3,600 in the nicer areas like North City, La Jolla, or Little Italy. Not to mention utility bills are 45% higher than the national average, gas averages around $3.17 a gallon, and taxes are through the roof. Expect to pay at least 9.3% in state income tax for most salaries, and sales tax is a whopping 7.75%. Well, actually, that's pretty cheap for California, as is the property tax of just 0.76%. But since the homes also cost a ton, you'll still be paying a ton. All things considered, it's no surprise that the overall cost of living in San Diego is 44% more expensive than the national average. Number 2. The homeless. You know what good weather usually means? A lot of homeless people. Although, even if the weather weren't great, there'd still probably be a sizable population. The lack of low-income housing combined with the high cost of living makes it not easy for most residents to get by. And to make matters worse, a lot of smaller cities in the neighboring regions and states send their homeless here on one-way bus tickets. Now, due to recent efforts to help the unhoused get back on their feet, the homeless population is actually decreased by 6% over the past year. But that still leaves nearly 8,000 people without a home living in San Diego County, over half of whom are unsheltered. Number 1. Job diversity. While the median household income in San Diego is nearly $84,000 and the poverty rate is just 10.3%, many residents still aren't exactly doing well because many of them work in jobs they hate. Now, this might sound worth it to live in a beautiful place with tons of sunshine until you realize that you don't have any time to enjoy the sunshine since you spend all your time and energy on a lackluster job. Now, don't get me wrong, there certainly are jobs here, but there just isn't enough economic diversity for people to do work in the field they enjoy. The economy's mostly centered on military and defense, manufacturing, healthcare, and of course, tourism. And it's not like you could just quit your job either, since there probably won't be any other companies in your industry hiring. Now be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know which city you want me to cover next. I honestly love San Diego, and there's a reason it's one of the best cities to live in this country. There's so much to do, it's insanely safe, and the weather really is perfect.